All eyes in tech are focused on Brooklyn this week at Samsung Unpacked 2019 event. Matt Miller with us here now to talk a little bit more about what we're hearing, what we're learning. So Matt, just take off from there. What are we learning now?
Yeah, so Samsung rolled out the heavily rumored, we pretty much knew all the details in advance, but now we know everything about the Samsung Galaxy Note 10. And for the first time on the Note series, they actually have two sizes, a Note 10 and a Note 10 Plus, which is something we have not yet seen on a Note, but we've seen numerous times on the S series. Actually, there's three of them. There's the Note 10 Plus 5G as well.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the 5G. What we can expect with this.
Yeah, so that's interesting because Larry wrote a great article that has me thinking, right? So the S10 5G, from what we know, will launch first on Verizon as a Verizon exclusive for a little while. We don't yet have the pricing information that will come from Verizon, um, but it's interesting because 5G networks are starting to roll out. However, they're not prevalent, right? It's limited to 6 to 10 major cities and just in a couple of the carriers so far. So, however, 2020 is going to be probably the year of 5G when we're going to see this. So it makes sense to get a 5G phone now. However, there's a premium on that cost, and then you have to balance out. Well, I would like the 5G, but why is Samsung even selling a 949 and a 1099 non 5G phone? So it's a kind of a difficult time for flagship smartphones because you have to decide, are you willing to spend $1,000 on a flagship that doesn't have 5G and use it for a year or two, or do you get a 5G now and don't get that functionality till next year, pay a premium? Because the big question will be next year in 2020 and 2021 and so on, when we have 5G networks just like LTE networks, will the 5G phones cost the same as the standard phones do now? So it's kind of a balance you have to make. I'm personally not yet ready to make that jump. My city's not covered. I don't anticipate it's going to be covered till next year. And as you know, as a writer for ZDNet, I switch phones as often as I change my underwear. So it doesn't matter to me if if I'm only going to use a phone for a few months.
Well, that puts it in perspective for us, Matt. Thank you. When you talk about the 10, so let's talk about this. Dive into some of the specifics and what they're telling us about the 10.
The Note 10 and Note 10 Plus, the only differences are a larger display on the Note 10 Plus, which of course comes with a larger device and a larger battery. But one key difference that may matter to some folks, I know several readers this will matter, and it's kind of an interesting trade-off they made, is that the Note 10 Plus has a micro SD storage card, but the Note 10 does not. And I know that Note users, things like storage cards, in the old days there's removable batteries, those were important to people. So right now the Note 10 Plus is probably the device that Note fans will want. And I personally have the Note 9 now that I bought last year. And when I had some hands-on time with the Note 10 Plus and the Note 9, there's a millimeter or two increase in length, but it's actually a thinner device in the Note 10 Plus. So going to the bigger Note 10 Plus is not going to be much of any kind of trade-off for Note 9 users. Everything else is the same, right? We do have some great improvements over the Note 9. For example, the internal storage starts now at 256 as the base. It goes up to 512 and some 1 terabyte offerings may be there. But the jump in that internal storage goes from UFS 2.1 to UFS 3. So we have a much faster internal storage drive in the new Note. The brightness levels are increased 800 to, I think they said 800 to 1200 nits in brightness, which is extremely bright Samsung OLED display. It has the additional 16 megapixel ultra wide. I think it's 123 degrees field of view camera, which we saw on the S10 Plus earlier this year, and also that time of flight camera that adds some 3D depth perception. So on the Note 10 Plus, we have a quad camera system. And then of course, right, everybody buys the Note for the S Pen. And The S Pen that we saw on the Note 9 was the first time it came with Bluetooth. The Note 10 and Note 10 Plus S Pen also has that same Bluetooth design. However, the S Pen is now a unibody design. It used to have some parts plastic, another part was a shiny plastic at the end. Now it's a unibody design. Still has Bluetooth, all that same functionality, but then it adds on top of it some sensors in it. So it has accelerometers and gyroscopes. So it's called Air Actions. You actually can take the S Pen out and do circles to zoom in with the camera. You can swipe through the air to switch camera modes. And then Samsung has also opened up the SDK so that developers can take and use their apps and add these Air Actions or other S Pen controls right in their applications.
Yeah, so some of the advancements that we're seeing, the changes with the camera and the S Pen, for example, those are definitely, things that people will take note of and probably really satisfy a lot of people when they're considering whether or not they want to make a change or upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that's missing on the Note 10 and 10 Plus is the headphone jack. We've seen that trend, started by Apple and Google and others have all gone that way. Samsung did that with the S10, and now in the Note series, we see the removal of the headphone jack, which I personally always use Bluetooth headphones. It's not, doesn't matter to me, but it will matter to some people. Another kind of thing to consider that may get you to upgrade is actually the Note 10 launches at a lower price than the Note 9. It's the Note 9 launched at $999 for the lowest model, which I believe was 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage. The Note 10, the smaller one, the 6.3-inch display one, launches at $949, which is $50 less. It does have 8 gigs of RAM and 256 base storage. So the price has actually gone down a little bit, which is not something we normally see in a flagship. And then the bigger Note 10 Plus will start at $1099, but that includes 12 gigs of base RAM and 256 of hard drive. So pricing is reasonable, and somebody like me who's on the Samsung upgrade program, I pay a monthly fee for my Note 9. I can just trade in my Note 9, get the Note 10 Plus, and continue to pay my fee that I've been paying without any difference.
Right, right. And, beyond this, talking about the smartphones, Matt, what else is Samsung touting in terms of other devices and things to look for?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because, I was at the Galaxy Unpacked event in Brooklyn last year when they revealed the Note 9, and then they revealed a bunch of other things, right? This year, they kind of precluded the event a little bit by rolling out and announcing a couple of devices in advance of the Note 10 event. We saw the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 was launched, I think that was last Wednesday. So it's their newest tablet, with a 10.5-inch Super AMOLED display, 855 processor, a massive battery. Again, the S Pen. And I had recently bought an iPad Pro 11, and this definitely is targeted directly to that customer with the S Pen that magnetically attaches to the back. It has a really cool keyboard attachment that pops up in there, but it also, that keyboard attachment adds a trackpad and other things that even go beyond the iPad. So it's a very capable tablet especially for the enterprise with the Samsung DeX support in it. So that was announced last week. I think that starts rolling out end of August, starting at $649. And then just on, let's see, today is Wednesday, I think it was Monday, Samsung revealed the Galaxy Watch Active 2. And I have the Galaxy Watch and previous watches before that. And one of the big selling points of those watches was, if you remember, the spinning bezel, right? You would take that physical bezel and spin it around for the interface. Then they launched the Watch Active last year that did away with that, and people were a bit upset. So Samsung added that back on the Watch Active 2, but it's no longer a physical rotating bezel. It's a touch rotating bezel. So it still has the same rotating bezel interface, but you simply wipe your finger around the bezel to have the same actions as the physical spinning bezel. So it's a nice watch. I haven't seen pricing information on that not new watch yet, but that'll be released soon with the Note 10 as well.
All right, and Matt, kind of in summary, do you feel like with all of the rumors that have been swirling, the expectations there for Samsung, do you feel like they've are hitting the mark here, falling short? Where do you think all this kind of is pointing towards?
I think they're hitting the mark. I think a lot of people were worried about the micro SD card and the headphone jack. Now the headphone jack is gone, but the micro SD card is still there. There were some things that weren't revealed, such as the UFS 3 storage, the battery's 4,300 milliamperes, the screen, of course. Samsung always gets rated to the top for their displays, and this improves that display, improves the camera, and then there's a bunch of things, with the Samsung One UI interface that we'll have to spend a month diving into all the functions and features, including some improvements in Samsung DeX. So, I mean, especially for the business user that likes the Note, I think it's a very nice upgrade. I think if you have a Note 8 or earlier, it's a definite upgrade. I'm on the Note 9. I have no problems with my Note 9. It's kind of a tougher sell, but hey, the price is a little bit lower than last year, and it's a extremely capable device. So.
Yeah. All right, and are we real quick? Are we going to hear much on the foldable phone? Expectations for that? What are you hearing?
Yeah. I actually had pre-ordered the Samsung Galaxy Fold when it was first announced, and then of course they took it back and said they're taking it back to the drawing board to fix some things. It's supposed to come out in September. It'll be interesting to see how that compares with a Note 10 Plus, because that's coming out. You can pre-order it starting tomorrow, the 8th of August, and it will be in stores on the 23rd of August. And then we have the Fold that's supposed to come in September. It's going to be an interesting balance to try to figure out which one they promote. I think the Fold still is an early adopter device. It's still kind of an experiment, but there's thousands, tens of thousands probably of people that will buy it, and that helps push the technology forward. I think it's a nice bold step by Samsung. It looks like they fixed a couple of the issues. Remains to be seen. I mean, those first screens started breaking within a couple days. I'm personally going to take a wait and see. It's just too much money right now. I'm going to go with a Note 10 Plus for myself. I can't give up the S Pen. If that Fold had an S Pen, I would get the Fold.
You'd be all over that one. Combining both. All right. Well, we certainly appreciate your insight on this, and a lot of information to dissect, Matt, and I know we'll continue to do that as the week unfolds. And for all the latest information coming out of Samsung Unpacked, make sure you stick with ZDNet and Tech Republic.